And we're back on the show. It's me, Hugh, and Eleonora is here. And we've got Marco Mazzini joining us from somewhere near Dublin, right, Marco?
Somewhere near Dublin. And I am actually a voice from the workplace because I'm actually sitting on the first floor of our office and the accountant's room. And so it's a real deal. We are actually based in a place called Swords, like the weapon. And we're
Swords.
about 10 minutes away from Dublin Airport. It's a small town, about 50,000 people living here, and it's considered to be one of the best places in Ireland to live and work in. So let's say our choice of venue for our office was a fortunate one, a lucky one.
Oh, fantastic!
So
Yeah.
yes, that's me from the workplace live. And thank you very much for having me in your show, you and Eleonora.
That's great.
So how we go? Yeah.
So it's just as we were saying, such a crazy world. Even when we were growing up, who would have thought that we would be able to talk to people from all over the world, and that people from all over the world would be moving to other parts of the world, and it's just people moving all over the place. Did you ever think, Marco, you would live in another country that began with the letter I?
No, and just as you mentioned this, who have ever thought? Eleonora and I, we go back about 30 years. We were fellow students at one of Italy's leading universities for foreign languages. And I remember when I was trying to improve my English back then, all I had was the small radio shortwaves trying to pick up the BBC World Service. Yeah. And there were no newspapers, maybe the Financial Times, maybe Time and Newsweek magazine, but that's all that was available at the time.
Yeah, amazing. Well,
to learn a foreign language, this was a really, really big job back then. So yes, it's amazing where we are.
What Marco told me yesterday, Hugh. Sorry, he said that I was the first person you spoke to at university. Maybe he was. Yes.
Oh yeah.
So we would go way back.
That
times.
Sometimes that's how you meet your best friends. You get there the first day and you just start talking to some stranger. The next thing you know, you're best friends for life.
That's it. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
So yes, and so yeah, I was always dreaming to go and work in an English-speaking country, as I enjoyed learning foreign languages when I was younger, and I was born in Italy, and I'm 53 years old. I actually moved to Ireland at the ripe age of 33 in 2001. So it was a long time before I actually took the plunge. And I've always worked in the transport industry, in the freight game, and I followed a very similar path here in Ireland. Funny, because one of the reasons why I left Italy in 2001 is because nothing seemed to change in Italy. I mean, there was a sense of hopelessness. So I decided, okay, I need to do something different with my life. And 2001, and Ireland was in the middle of the so-called economic boom, so-called Celtic Tiger. And I thought, okay, this is going to be a big challenge, a big adventure. I'm going to go to Ireland and look for a job. So I went on the internet and trying to get, a few interviews. And in the space of 2 or 3 days, I had 11. I remember that very well. I still distinctly remember that. I had 11 interviews lined up.
Wow.
So when I arrived in Ireland, 7th of April, 2001, I still remember the date. I arrived in Ireland in the morning, went for my first job interview in the afternoon, and the day after, I had a job. And something that was unheard of in Italy, because in Italy you end up going to same interview 2, 3, 4 times, and then it's like, okay, we will let you know. You send a lot of CVs, and you're lucky enough if they even consider you as a candidate. So it was a big shock. It was a good shock, obviously, and this is when it all started, 2001, and it's now 21 years. And I consider Ireland to be my adopted country, of course.
Wow, that's very cool. I mean, in a way, my experience is kind of the same. Even though I've stayed in Canada, right? Because I'm from a smaller town, and the job situation was pretty bleak there. And when I came to Toronto, Toronto was a boom town, but it's not really a boom town anymore. I wouldn't say.
You wouldn't say that? So
I wouldn't say that. I think it's tough, a lot tougher to get a job.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Right? Because then Marco said, "Oh, there was a sense of hopelessness," and that's interesting because that sense of hopelessness was the same thing I felt when I moved 6 years ago. So probably the sense of hopelessness is in ourselves, right?
Well, that's a good point, but it's funny because I asked you, why did you move to Canada?
Like, why on earth?
Because often we have fantasies about moving to Tuscany or something, or even people from like, I don't know, I love France, right? I haven't been to Italy, have to say, but
and you should.
but I'm just saying, France seems like so perfect, right? The climate, the wine, the people, everything. And yet I meet people from Paris that live in Toronto, and I go, and it's they too kind of say the same thing, just a sense of a lack of opportunity or something like that in the old world or whatever. But
so Ireland chose you in a sense, right, Marco? Because you said you had other interviews planned, but actually that one worked out.
Yes, it worked out for me. Why go to a second interview or a third or a fourth? I was lucky enough to land a job basically on the same day that I arrived in Ireland. So I started almost immediately, and as a normal employee, and working in transport and looking after business, from loads from Italy to Ireland, Germany to Ireland. I remember that very well. And then, of course, you have initially you have nothing to do. You're starting a new life, and you're completely focused on your job, and you work very hard, and you don't even realize that. And so your career improves, kind of on its own, and until I was offered the opportunity in 2006, just out of the blue. I was actually having a very bad day at the office, so the timing of this phone call was absolutely incredible. I was offered to set up the Irish office for a prestigious, that would be the right word, Italian shipping group that's been trading since 1867. So at the time, they were one of our suppliers, and I decided to say yes. I didn't have any second thoughts. So maybe at the time I thought it was a reckless decision, or maybe I said, okay, this is the kind of things you have to really, weigh. You have to weigh the cons and pros. But I mean, I felt that it was the right decision for me, and this is how I became a manager, a managed director, and all of a sudden, I went from being a senior operative to a managing director, having to set up a company. Of course, it's not my company, not through my own private means. But still, I had quite a few sleepless nights because the new role and setting up a company, finding a solicitor, finding an office, and trying to figure out how it works and how to put together a team and how to start a new business. It's quite a challenge. Yes, I had a few sleepless nights, and I have lots of doubts. We are human beings. I mean, we're not superheroes.
Yes, I was thinking, Marco, like, can you imagine, like, moving to a different country, and then that's already hard enough, and then setting up. They tell you, okay, now you set up the whole. It's not just about changing your job.
Right.
It's sort of hire new people.
So I have to ask, Marco, how long had you been in Ireland when you got this new opportunity to set up?
5 years.
So, okay, so you had a bit of a sense of the lay of the land, how things work.
Yes.
All that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. But then I was thrown into, transported, no pun intended, into this new dimension of being, in charge of nothing, because I had no team. I was actually basically in charge of myself and my current partner, who is also director of the company. So I was really starting from scratch. And of course, all sorts of doubt started to creep in. What am I doing with my life? I'm 38, 39. Is it going to work out? Have I just made the most stupid decision in my life, or the boldest decision in my life? The kind of thought that crosses across your mind. And it was difficult at the beginning, but I had to be, very grateful to the parent company that supported us throughout. And were it not for them, maybe I wouldn't be here. But
I
then
have
of course.
Oh, sorry to interrupt.
No, but
I just have a coaching question that is like here from a business coach perspective. What do you think the owners saw in you that made them think, okay, this is the guy that probably they had other people who were good, other professionals, right? But they saw something in you that made them think, okay, this guy can really develop the branch and just set up the business and set up a company. So what qualities do you think they saw in you?
Well, first of all, the owners, they wouldn't set up a foreign office unless they knew the person who was going to do that. They wouldn't. And they knew me because I was a customer at the time, and I was very focused on developing, the Italian business. By the Italian business, I mean transport services from Italy to Ireland, which was not a niche market because there were a few companies doing exactly the same. But myself being Italian, I thought I had the edge over the competition in a way because I speak the language and I know the business inside out. So they probably saw my complete commitment in embracing a new cause. I mean, I didn't have any reservations, nor I was actually really keen to start this new adventure. That's probably the reason. I wasn't talking. I'll be honest. This is all my personal stuff. I wasn't talking about money. I wasn't talking about that. Any of this practical thing. I was talking about business from the first day. That's probably what may have, swayed them. I was talking about business the first day, what I wanted to achieve, what I wanted, some ideas that I had, and everything else that happened was probably a consequence of that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not for the faint-hearted. It's when you're on your own and you make those sort of decisions. When you leave a safe job, you leave your little security you have created for yourself in a foreign country. It's not an easy decision, and so. Especially at the beginning, it was very hard because you have to cover your wages, you have to cover your fixed costs, and then of course we were extremely lucky because firstly into our new business we had a big recession, so we probably started the new business at the worst possible time because in 2007 Ireland was booming as an economy, and in 2008 beginning of 2009, this country went completely bust. I mean, we went from probably full employment to 15% unemployment in Dublin or thereabouts. I remember very, very well that around November, December of 2008, November and December are supposed to be the busiest time of the year. All of a sudden, after what happened with Lehman Brothers, the phone stopped ringing. We were not getting any emails. It's just like somebody switched off the light, and that was just 1 year into the new company, and again the old doubts start creeping back in again. Well, did I, was it the right thing for me to do? Was it the right decision? Because again, it was a sort of nightmarish scenario. I never lived through a recession in my life, so that was the first big challenge. And then the second challenge was, of course, COVID, and hopefully there won't be a third challenge about. And of course, referring what's happening in the world. But I had my fair share of challenges because the 2009 recession hit Ireland very, very, very badly.
Mm-hmm. So interesting. So you had to, I mean, as you said, you started out, you were the only guy, right? So it
was myself, my current partner, she's also a director, she's also Italian, and we had to look for two people to help us with the day-to-day running of the company. I was actually in charge myself. I was actually literally running the company, doing menial work at the beginning, because that's what you have to do. You cannot just let others do the work for you. So yes, we were a very small team, and we survived because at the time of the recession, we came up with a sort of economy transfer services from Italy to Ireland by container instead of by truck. So it's slower, goes by rail and by sea. It was slower, and customers all of a sudden who were interested in the service because it was cheaper, and we were also transporting a lot of foodstuffs, food from Italy to Ireland, and food is one of those products that are almost recession proof. and I had to say COVID-19 proof, because I will tell you in a minute what happened during the COVID crisis. So in a way, we were blessed, we were lucky, and we managed to survive, but it was not easy.
But you had to put that team together, right? And that's kind of, we want to talk about all that, about the whole team building thing.
Sure.
And then I really want to follow up and hear about the COVID experience too, and how your team was able to manage that, and then how you've had to adapt, or what has changed.
Yeah, that's probably what we need to talk about, because that's probably the most interesting experience I've ever lived in my life. And the managing director, or the general manager, or the boss, me, it is actually part of the team, because you have this misconception that you have the employees and then you have the big boss, whose job is just to demand stuff of the team, and that's it. Well, it can be a very lonely place to be in charge of a team when these sort of things happen. Now, COVID-19, we fast forward to 2020. Now our team had grown up to 10 people, and we also acquired 50% of a company in Belfast, Northern Ireland. So let's say our combined team was made up of 15 people. Now you may remember that for a short period of time, Italy was the epicenter in Europe of the COVID. And it started in Italy. You may remember those very heart-rending images of coffins being taken out of the hospitals and through these military convoys in a place called Bergamo. All of a sudden, this town became well known all over the world for these sad reasons. And we, as a company, you have to understand, 90% of our trade was with Italy. So between Ireland and Italy, and Italy with Ireland. So it was a team focused on, making sure that everything was running smoothly, that all the loads by truck, by container would be arranged on time, etc., etc. And as COVID hit Italy, we saw our business shrink by the day, because companies started closing. People were asked to work from home. All non-essential businesses ceased trading for a temporary number of weeks. All sorts of rural regulations were issued by the government, and so you had no end of cancellations from our customers, and you will start wondering what's happening. It is you 90% of your business is with Italy. Italy is the epicenter of the pandemic in Europe at the moment. What's going to happen to our business? And you see the as I said, the number of orders or bookings decreasing, and you can't believe what's happening. You're in complete disbelief. The transport warehouses, they're hit by COVID as well. Truck drivers, they don't want to drive into Italy for being, for fear of being infected. So everything you had worked for so many years seems to be disappearing in a space of just a few days and weeks. Mm-hmm. So, as a leader, as the person who set up this company with all these nice ideas, another doubt starts creeping in. Did I make a strategic mistake? Did I make the biggest mistake that maybe somebody in business could make? That is to put all your eggs in one basket. What if Italy disappears for I mean, again, I had never lived through a pandemic before. I read about the Black Death, I read about the Spanish flu, etc., etc. That was what was happening right in front of my eyes, back at belief. So, and it's okay. What's going to happen now? I mean, all of my business is from Italy. So, should I have diversified my business when I decided to set up this company? Should I have? Was it a mistake to concentrate only on this particular type of business? So we were experiencing something terrible, and at the same time, I had a sense of guilt. And of course, I couldn't possibly tell the rest of the team about my feelings, the idea, or even the suspicion that I had made a mistake.
Marcus, I'd like to ask you about that, because this is such an interesting point. Like the loneliness of the person who's at the top and has responsibility of sort of encouraging everybody else, but they're lost as well. You were lost you didn't know what was coming. So leading a team, they usually say, oh, you need objectives, you need to focus on the objectives, and then you lead the rest. But you yourself didn't even know if you were going to have a company maybe in a few months, if it would still be there. It must have been.
I mean, it's easy now to maybe downplay the some of the consequences of COVID, because we're pretty much in good health. Of course, there have been unfortunately thousands of deaths, but at the time when it all started, was like, I mean, what if I catch the COVID? Am I going to die? Is the team that I have in front of me, is it going to be there tomorrow or in a week from now? It's all sorts of questions that we were asking back then. Now it almost sounds too much. 2 years on, it's like we're blowing everything out of proportion. But back then, I remember that these were the kind of questions that you were asking yourself: what am I going to do? What if half of my team, is falls sick? And what about the business, etc., etc. So yes, it was a very lonely place to be in, and was it being hypocritical not to convey these fears to the rest of the team? Should you be regarded as a strong man in the midst of adversity? All sorts of questions. But then, of course, COVID spread throughout Europe, and in Ireland as well. And St. Patrick's Day was cancelled. All the pubs were closed. Imagine closing the pubs in Ireland for over a year.
Hey, Marco, I just got to say, because when COVID hit here too, it was St. Patrick's Day. And there was a giant St. Patrick's Day party that I was going to. And they actually, should we cancel it? Should we not cancel it? And it turned out to be the last social event before everything got locked down.
So you did go. You didn't manage to go?
Yeah, we went to the...
But it still went ahead, okay. Yes?
It did, but
yes.
But the parade was canceled, I think, and... it
was the last event that you...
Yeah, it was the last thing before the whole lockdown hit. So interesting that it's St. Patrick's Day, but yeah.
Yeah, and that's probably when the penny dropped. You cancel St. Patrick's Day in Ireland, you close the pubs, so it clearly means that something is wrong.
Yeah.
And so... we were asked, it was actually made mandatory to work from home. So I had to ask people, of course, to work from home. I left the office, and I still remember I left the office and I looked back and I said, will I ever be back? I know I may sound a little bit cheesy, but I left the office and I kept saying to myself, well, will I ever be back in this office? So
yeah.
So
it's hard, right? I remember, that day I taught for the last time, and it was me and my colleague, and all the classrooms were empty. Everybody left, and I turned to her, and we started crying, because we said, "This is what we love: being with people, and we're not going to be for." We don't know how long.
And you were in Canada too, right? Yeah. And I know teachers that retired because they just don't like dealing with the Zoom.
I understand
the Zoom thing. So that's really just that's a changed workplace, right?
It really is a big change.
And so Marco, listen, I really want to get into the changes that you had to, as a CEO or a leader of the company had to deal with, and how you were dealing with your employees and all that kind of stuff, and where that has taken you now. But so but let's just play some commercials, and then we'll come back. We'll get into the nitty gritty of how you were able to overcome all that stuff. So we'll be right back in a couple minutes.
You are watching Carrot Vision.
All right, and we're back here. Okay, and Marco is here joining us. So now we're going to get into the nitty gritty.
Yes, because this is I have a very interesting talk with Marco. Before we were mentioning this interview, and that's the thing that we're really curious to know. How did you manage your team? What changes did you make? As opposed to before the pandemic, you were managing your team in a certain way, and then this emergency hit, and you said, it's a 360-degree emergency. It was virtual. It was everything was affected. So what changed in your leadership style, and what decisions did you have to make, and what which decision worked, and maybe other decisions didn't work?
Okay. Yes, it's as I said, it was probably the most interesting, the most challenging, but most interesting, the most rewarding part of my story working in this company, working as managed director. I learned a lot of things through this crisis. First of all, the very concept of team, and I had a brief discussion with chat with Eleonora the other day, and we focus on team. We use the word team, and when you use the word team, you think about a sports team that has an opponent, and the purpose of the team is to defeat the opponent, and I'm calling it the opponent, and not the enemy, the opponent. And every player brings the best in them, just trying to defeat the opponent. And it's very easy to explain what a team is if you think about any sport, soccer or rugby or any sports. When it comes to the workplace, you're actually dealing with a group of people who, whose main purpose is to, of course, do their job from usually from 9 to 5, the usual time frame. Do it properly, do it professionally, get paid for it, and hopefully to find some interest and some reward in what they're doing. But and then there is the relationships between colleagues, co-workers, workmates, whatever you want to call them, and then management and team. But there is no opponent, and if there is no opponent, and by opponent I mean challenge, an ultimate goal, somebody or something that you have to challenge. It's very difficult, and that's my own personal view. Of course, it's not reflected by any of the two parent companies maybe I belong to. They're doing a fantastic job developing the team concept within the group. This is just my own personal views, of course. I found that when COVID hit, we were in crisis mode, crisis management mode. We actually had an opponent. We had somebody that we had to sort of play against, and that was COVID itself, and all the problems that it was causing, the business that was shrinking, the customers that didn't understand what was going on. Why is it happening in Italy? It's not happening over here. And I found that apart from setting up a virtual office through Teams, etc., I found that a team was born out of this crisis almost naturally, because we were all focused on trying to make the best out of a very challenging situation, which is not what you normally experience during a normal day at the office. There was something very serious that we all had to, fight against, and we found that during a time where people were losing their health, the job became almost a healthy destruction, because it helped people to stop thinking about the consequences of COVID. At the time, we still didn't know how serious it was, if there was going to be a vaccine. So we basically had nothing to do, because even our movements were restricted. We couldn't leave our homes, and there were all sorts of restrictions in place. So it became a sort of not just a job, but also a distraction, and all of our attention was focused on doing the job properly. So to reinforce this feeling of a group of people in the same boat, really in the same boat, trying to experience the same exact kind of anxieties and uncertainty, and fighting against a sort of common opponent, which was the COVID. I also decided to share as much information as possible about the company, what the company's financial targets were, what the company's costs were, because you need to treat people as adults. Of course, everything that was deemed to be confidential was not shared, but some basic information, so that you know who you're working with for, was something that also helped cement the team. So as well as the job per se, we're concentrating on hitting some financial targets, which helped focus your ideas, your action a lot.
So Marcos, sorry, this is interesting. I think he's talking about being transparent. Was that your recipe, like sort of making sure that these people
thinking about treating people as adults and with respect.
So you were not doing that before? Is that what you're saying? Like it was a change?
Before it was you have to do the job, and people were expected to do the job because that's the job, and all you expect of somebody working for you is to do the job as proficiently, as professionally as possible. But what about the context? What about, is the company making money? Is the company profitable? How is the company positioned against the competitors? What do we actually do for a living? And would it not be a good idea to find out a little bit more about what you're doing? And if there are other angles, then maybe we can look at the job. And it was all happening while we had the time to do this, because we were jolted out of this 9-to-5 routine, and so we had a lot of time in our hands. And of course, when you have a lot of time and people stop looking at the watch, and the productivity increases, when business stabilizes, of course, the productivity increased as a consequence. But it all happened naturally. So I'd say that, of course, I had to make sure that everybody was online, that everybody was not taking advantage of the fact that they were working from home. But I have to say, I had a great team. I had a great team of serious professionals who actually far exceeded my expectations. And I had to say, the lesson I've drawn from this is that as a leader, well, if your job is to be a leader, is the first thing you have to do is to trust the people you work with, treat them as adults, share as much as you can reasonably share about the company with them, and make them feel part of the company, because ultimately we are talking about a business, and when we're talking about a team, that all sorts of we talk about a lot of things, but sometimes we forget to talk about the business. And business, through a time of crisis, is, at least as regards COVID, turned out to be, as I said, a healthy distraction. So I didn't really have to do much as a leader to create it. It's like the team almost was born out of this crisis that we were experiencing. So
interesting. Sorry, if I can stop you there for a second, because this is what people are discussing right now, that some people are going back to work, some people are still going to work online, and that's a totally different conversation. But you mentioned productivity, and this is what the discussion is also about. Do you think people are more productive or less productive at home? What was your experience? Because this is an ongoing debate. What was your
people have got used to working from home. They have their own spaces, and let's be honest, colleagues can be a distraction, and especially if a colleague is talking on the phone and is loud, and it can get in the way of your work. A colleague can be a distraction sometimes. We don't get to choose our colleagues. We need to try and get along with our colleagues, but working from home clearly helps you focus more on your job, and you end up becoming more disciplined. And of course, it's up to the individual persons that you're dealing with. And in that respect, I have to say that I've been very lucky, because I have a very mature and responsible people working in our company. So it worked for them. I'm not saying that I haven't felt lonely at times. I felt lonely at times myself. I'm not saying it hasn't been difficult. It must have been very difficult, especially if you think that 9/10 of our company is made up of non-Irish citizens. So we were all watching what was happening in the world from here. So we were thinking about our loved ones, our friends, and not being able to go and meet them, or the human contact, the human touch was so the loneliness was probably felt even at a deeper level. If you think that, as I said, nine people out of 10 in this company, they're not Irish. So there was also another challenge. But yes, I found that working from home has helped people to focus more on their job, to discipline them.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting, but I mean, you can get distracted at home too. I mean, I remember a couple stories of where I've seen, where the baby comes in or the dog starts barking, or there was that one famous video of a lawyer. I think it was a court case, right, on Zoom, and the lawyer had the cat filter.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
You know what another distraction is? The fridge might call you. That's what happens.
The fridge.
The fridge. I don't know.
Your fridge calls you?
It calls me. I'm trying to focus. Really, I do that. And the fridge goes, open me. Yeah.
You've got a talking fridge?
I know. And it's calling me, and then I have to open it and just take out. I don't know.
Is
it just me?
I want a talking fridge.
So, that's why
Hugh, I found that, then all of a sudden the job was not that thing that, was getting in the way of your life, because that 9 to 5 period of time that gets in the way of your private life, plus, driving to work and back. There are people that were driving 40 miles, coming to the office, driving to the office and back. So everything was happening at home. So it's probably, it all felt a little bit more natural. At the beginning, maybe it was an invasion of your privacy because you were actually bringing your work into your own house, into your own family. But little by little, I think it all became natural, and people actually enjoyed working from home. We conducted a small survey, a couple of surveys during the pandemic, because I wanted to find out if this was going to create a problem. Because it was my duty also to make sure that there was no psychological setbacks. And the feedback that I got from everyone was that it was okay working from home, and they were getting used to it. And in fact, some of them still saying that probably working from home is a lot more productive for them, and they get a lot more things done more accurately working from home than coming to the office. Of course, the right compromise will have to be found. Unfortunately, COVID is again spreading. The new variant is spreading in Ireland quite aggressively again. So we have to deal with this again. But I'd say that after 2 years, not only have we survived this emergency, but people, the team, there is a real team now that was born out of an emergency, and that's how the team was. Well, of course, there were times where there were disagreements, and a couple of people left for a number of reasons. New people came in, but that's part of life. But
yeah, Marco. So I just want to ask from the perspective of management, right? Because I mean, one thing I've noticed with businesses a lot, or governments, any kind of organization, it just seems they tend to go through, here's the centralization phase, and now we're in a decentralization phase. Yes. It seems to go back and forth like that. And, as a manager, basically managing teams, right? I mean, that's the job of a manager, I guess, essentially. Do you find, and because I do know some companies, they argue against, this is before COVID, arguing against the idea of people working at home. No, they want to have the team in-house. Sure. They want to create a sense of, I'm not sure what it is, a community or a sense of synergy working together. I mean, did you, as a manager, did you feel that sometimes it was a challenge to get your team working the way you wanted because they weren't, in-house anymore? You were managing them decentralized?
No, it worked better, and I'm still wondering why. But I think that the centralization, as you call it, was virtual. I mean, they were all sharing information on Teams or through Microsoft. They were all looking at the same picture, as it were, of the company, and they were all sharing the same targets, financial targets. and that's what's probably, probably the centralization doesn't necessarily have to be a physical place. It could be also a virtual place. So it's probably, if you have all the people working in the office at the same time, it doesn't necessarily mean that you create synergies or a better environment. Sometimes it can be messy, it can be loud, there can be a lot of confrontation between colleagues, some people can take pressure in very well. Some other people, you can see that they cannot take the pressures as well, and so whoever cannot take the pressure will create a sort of, is at risk of creating a difficult environment within the office. Whereas while they're working from home, you don't see them. You see and you talk with them from time to time, but you don't see exactly what's happening. So it's a very complex issue. The truth of the matter is, it's a very complex issue. We were lucky in that we managed, as I said, to survive the crisis and to have and to be able to build a team.
I think you said it correctly. I mean, there's no one size fits all solution. That's why what always sort of scares me when people tend to say it's done that way or this way. There's no one size fits all. You're right. For some people, it's vital to go to the office.
Wait, unless you're a doctor, because then we know there's only one way out of this pandemic.
Okay, that's the only way.
That's for everyone.
That's for everyone, and that's it. And there's no.
That's the only exception, but otherwise, you're absolutely correct.
There's usually every subject or topic, it is complex, right? Even in this case, and he mentioned that. It was really nice of him. Like, if I was in his team, I'd be very happy, because Marcus said my team was special. Maybe that plays a role too. What kind of people do you have working for you? That makes a big difference. You're right. Whether you're online or in person, if somebody's not a good individual, then they're going to create problems. But like me, for instance, and I told you that I need to go downtown to the co-working space. You
need to. Yeah. What about that idea, Marco? Because, it's one thing to be, working at home, but I think sometimes people need to change it up, or even some people, you need to move from and I feel that way, right?
Yeah.
Like, in a way, I don't have to be here wherever I am.
Undisclosed location.
Exactly. Right. But it's like a whole, when you move your physical body, you're kind of also changing your mindset.
Yeah. That's right.
So how did you?
Well, we're trying to, in a way, we are trying to encourage people to come to the office.
You are now.
If and when they want.
Oh, I see.
They want to, because it has to. There is no point in forcing anyone to come to the office, especially at a time like this. I mean, the crisis is evolving. Again, they're talking about maybe asking people again to work from home, because this new variant is spreading very quickly in Ireland. So you're dealing with a different scenario after every few months. You end up dealing with a new scenario. But ultimately, you're aware that you have realized your goals if people are happy to come to the office to talk to you and to meet their colleagues again, and that's the most natural, spontaneous thing that can happen. Of course, we are asking everyone to come to the office, in rotation, because we had 2 cases of COVID recently, so it's not 100% safe to come to the office. So we do it in rotation. We make sure that everybody has enough space to work safely. But we are trying to get the best of 2 worlds: the quiet and the concentration, the focus you get working from home, the efficiency, the increased productivity working from home, and also being able to talk and share your thoughts in person with your colleagues, with your manager, because ultimately we are human beings. We need to talk to people, and so a lot of companies, the majority of companies that at least that I know of in Ireland, have chosen a so-called hybrid model, whereby they're letting their employees work from home for X amount of days during the week, and another few days in the office. And that's probably at the moment the best compromise. I come to the office every day because I like being in the office, and especially when it's quiet. And
Yeah.
Michael, can I ask you something? Just
yes.
a quick thing. So now you have your team, and you're very happy about your team. But again, from my perspective as a coach, if you had to do a workshop or like a half-day workshop or a couple of hours or a webinar or anything to improve your workplace culture, which is what I deal with,
Yes.
what would you like to do, even with a very, very good team that you have? So it's not about solving problems. It's actually about improving certain aspects. I don't know, leadership, time management, decision-making, empathy, conflict resolution. Which one would you pick, or which two? He can pick two.
Listen, you may not agree with my answer, but that's my honest thought about it.
Yeah, sure.
I think that people should become curious about their job. They should learn a lot more about what they're doing. They should explore all angles
Of course, I agree.
what they're paid for to do from 9 to 5. And knowing, I would spend, and we're already doing it. I would spend resources and time making sure that the team becomes very proficient in the job, and especially become curious, because if you become curious, you develop a passion for your job. If you develop a passion for your job, you're on top of things. You do things in a completely different way. You start actually liking what you do. And passion comes through, probably can be instinctive, or very often comes through knowledge. If I know more about something, I will be curious to find out even more, and by finding out even more, I think I develop a passion. And passion usually means efficiency, means the company operates at the very best of its ability. That this is what. So I would encourage people.
Of course, I agree. Sorry, because this is professional growth. It's professional development, and it has to do with soft skills, right? Being curious and just really motivated about.
We did a course in English, the English course we did with one of our employees. You know, that was very.
Okay, that's a good one too. That's professional growth as well, professional development.
Because you want to grow in confidence, and now unfortunately, I keep telling, especially we need, as Italians, we need to be able to be as proficient in English as the Northern Europeans.
So, Marco, sorry to just let you know that we only have 1 minute to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
1 minute
already
left. So, yeah. So.
Can you believe this?
I know, right? I know. But so, Marco, we want to give you the chance to say, you got about, less than a minute left, but your final thoughts on this whole topic would be much appreciated.
Well, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to try and summarize everything. It's very team. A team is not something that you can improvise. It's not an abstract concept. It's not something that can be pushed onto somebody. A team. What I found is that a team evolves out of a common goal, and the company's goal has to be very clear, and the goal has to be some sort of opponent, and the job of the leader is to find this secret virtual opponent so that the team can play against this opponent and win. What this opponent is, I don't know. It could be financial targets. It could be knowing what the competitors are doing. It could be anything. But you cannot create a team out of abstract theories. You have to have a challenge all the time. The leader must find a challenge for the team.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Okay, Marco, great to have this conversation. Thanks for doing this today. Wish we had more time. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow at noon for more right here on Carrot Vision TV and that channel. We'll see you then.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks.